It's on my mind every hour of every day. The things we could do, oh, it takes my breath away. And I lose control, think I follow her onto the edge. But she says she's only a friend, only a friend.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this event. My name is Timo. I'm the head of Western Europe at Human8, and I'm going to be your host for this session. We see people are still entering, but we'll get started as we have an hour full of amazing content ready for you. Before we dive in, I do have just a few practicalities to mention. This session will be recorded, and obviously it will be sent to all people who registered for this event right after this session. If you have any questions during the session, please use the questions tab on your right-hand side. So you have the chat and you have the questions tab. Obviously, you can chat, but if you have a specific question for one of our presenters, use the questions tab. Will be easier for us to monitor. And also in the questions tab, you get the chance to upvote questions and react during the presentation through emojis, which I saw some of you already discovered. So at the end of the session, we'll obviously have some time for Q&A, and we'll try to answer as many of your questions as possible. Let's obviously start with a short introduction to the topic and then also the speakers for today. Now, I know that sometimes events like these can have very intriguing and sexy titles, like, for example, our last event, which was Manifesting Change, if you've been there. This one is, I would say, more in the face. The best bits of ESOMAR, I kind of have the feeling that everyone more or less would know what to expect from this session. Let me explain it for people who don't get it. So 3 weeks ago, obviously, ESOMAR had its global event in Athens with 3 days packed with interesting research and consumer insight content. And of course, we were there as well with no less than 7 contributions, actually. And so today, we're bringing you 3 of those amazing cases for everyone that was not able to attend live in Athens. First up, we'll have Angie presenting a case that we did together with Philips on Gen Z parents. So that's right, yeah, there are already Gen Z parents that may make some of you feel already a bit old, but sorry, it's the truth. Secondly, we have Delphine presenting our Global Consumer Connect program we have for L'Oreal, and that was the winner of the Silver Research Effectiveness Award at ESOMAR. And last but not least, we have Tim, who's a research consultant in our Rotterdam office and who was a finalist for the Yes Award at ESOMAR. And Tim is going to show you how you can use AI to make meaningful connections with your consumers. Now, out of our 7 contributions, we didn't just select random 3 or not randomly the ones that could make it today. There is one topic that connects them all, which is consumer closeness. And so why did we select this topic for you today? Basically, because today, more than ever, we know it's necessary. And because we know it works. It's proven time and time again that customer-centric companies are more profitable, grow faster, and outperform competition. And I know it's nothing new. I did my thesis on consumer centricity more than 15 years ago. The thing is that still we see a lot of companies that actually fail or that recognize from themselves that they are not customer centric yet. So the question for today also is how can we help, basically? And there's this phrase that says the first step in solving a problem is realizing that there is one, of course. So we all need to realize that we are not our own consumer. We need to break out of what we call our executive bubble. And maybe even more importantly is that we as consumer insight people need to lead this through, need to lead this thought within our organizations as well. Of course, we are known to come up with great insights, to generate great insights. But if this is not triggering anything or not changing anything, then basically why did we need them in the first place? So in this webinar on consumer closeness, we'll talk about the creative ways of how we generate insight, but equally about creating empathy with our internal stakeholders, which is all about building a culture with your teams through immersive experiences and human-to-human connections that hopefully result in positive action. Each of the 3 cases today will show you examples on how you can do that as well in your organization. So here we go. I'll give the floor to Angie, who will share you the story on how we did this for Philips around the topic of Gen Z parents.
I can't help but dancing all night. The beat has got me losing my mind.
Thanks, Timo. I think we might have lost the slides. There we go. Perfect. Well, thanks, Timo, for bringing back the slides. And thanks, everyone, for joining. Before we dive into the content and the fascinating world of Gen Z parents, I really would want you to take a moment and to reflect on how you would handle the following scenario. So now imagine you have a 2-year-old and you are at a supermarket with your 2-year-old and they are having a tantrum. What would you do? Which of these following 3 options would most likely apply to you? Would you, first of all, tell your child to stop? Would you, second option, distract them with, for example, some candy? Or the third and final option, would you ignore it and just carry on with your groceries? So drop your answers in the chat. And so far, based on the input I see coming in, it looks like we have some millennials and Gen Xers in the audience today. But of course, there's not really a wrong or a right answer here. The key question for today is how would Gen Z handle this? And in fact, none of these options truly apply to Gen Z. Gen Z parents, they would most likely let their child have the tantrum, but they are doing it with a twist. And I will tell you more about that later on. And this, of course, triggers questions on Gen Z's parenting style and the drivers behind that. And those are exactly the type of questions we wanted to answer with our study. So over the past year, Philips and Human8's have teamed up to explore the next generation of parents. And our mission was to decode Gen Z's parental mindsets and uncover what truly matters to them. And this is really important for Philips because as a leader in health technology and with a strong footprint in mother and child care and women's health, they aim to improve the lives of 2.5 billion people every year by 2030. And so to achieve that and to be truly people-centric, it's essential for them to understand the next generation of parents and their shifting needs. So before we start, let's make sure that we're all on the same page on who we are referring to when we say Gen Z. So Gen Z are those people born between 1997 and 2012. So that means today they are still pretty young, as Timo mentioned earlier. In fact, they are between 12 and 27 years old. And we already know a lot about them. In fact, plenty of studies have given us a pretty clear picture on Gen Z's values and what they stand for. For example, having them growing up during the pandemic and also economic instability makes them more resilient and adaptable, but it also makes them champions of social change and inclusivity. Next to that, we, for example, also know that they prioritize mental well-being and tend to approach life with a sense of playfulness. However, we know a lot less about them as parents. And while they are still young, as I mentioned before, all under 27, they are entering parenthood. And in fact, they are doing it fast. And we are looking at expecting Gen Z to make up 50% of all births by 2027. And as they are increasingly defining the parenting landscape, it's more than ever important for us to get close to them. Now, to truly understand this unique generation, we had to go beyond their roles as parents in our study. We also had to explore their lifestyle, the context that they live in, and the changing parenting landscape. And to get that full picture, we used a mixed method approach. And at the heart of all of it was our mobile-first online community. So over the course of 4 weeks, we collaborated with 115 people from the US and Germany. And this resulted in 2,200 interactions, and we captured more than 1,700 pictures and videos. And while our goal was to decode the Gen Z parental mindset, we collaborated with both Gen Z and millennial parents so that we could pinpoint and identify differences between these two generations. Now, since Gen Z is only at the start of their parenting journey, we also collaborated and teamed up with Gen Zers who are not yet a parent today, but are open towards parenthood in the future. And our community really served as a creative toolbox, allowing us to dive into the different dimensions of parenting by combining mobile ethnography with storytelling exercises and mission-based activities. Now, to further illuminate all of our learnings, we then also teamed up with experts and creatives. So on the one hand, we closely collaborated with generational experts to help us identify which differences were really driven by generation and which ones were more a result of life stage. And that then gives us clarity on how Gen Z parents truly stand out. We then partnered with those creatives in a global ideation contest where we asked them to design an app that addresses the needs of these future parents. And all those fresh ideas that we captured helped us to bring to life our learnings. Now, of course, the question is, what did we learn? Well, to start, parenthood is in fact not a given for Gen Z. We see that a lot of Gen Zers have concerns around parenthood because of sustainability reason, economic instability, and even war. Other Gen Zers simply do not like the idea of parenting or aren't willing to sacrifice their freedom. So compared to previous generations, Gen Z is more pushing back on that societal pressure to have children. And they see it really as a personal choice, not as an expectation. And with their more progressive and inclusive mindsets, they are also far less judgmental towards people that decide not to have children. Now, those Gen Zers that do become parents, they do it in their own unique way, and they are experiencing parenthood different from previous generations. Millennials, for example, they often approach it with more caution. They are more concerned that becoming a parent will overshadow their personal identity. And that's not how Gen Z looks at it. They view parenthood as an enriching experience, something that they can learn and grow with. For them, becoming a parent is not about compromising their identity, it's about enhancing it, adding extra layers to it. Now, before we dive into their unique parenting style, let's take a look at one factor that really shapes their mindset, and that is their upbringing. Because the way we are raised has a big impact on how we are approaching parenting. And Gen Z and millennials, they grew up with very different parenting styles, because millennials, they were mainly raised by boomers, and Gen Z was mainly raised by Gen X. So when we look at millennials and their boomer parents, we kind of see that boomers often focused on financial success. So as a result, they emphasized the importance of education and a strong work ethic. And then they combined that with placing high value on family, creating really a protective, supportive environment that focused on traditions and quality time. And we see that millennials want to give their children a similar upbringing. They want to provide that same safe and loving environment that they grew up in. However, although millennials see their parents as role models, they don't want to keep everything the same. And the key thing that they want to tweak is broadening the picture of what personal development means. They want to go beyond education, but also focus more on creativity, physical health, and mental well-being for their children. Now, when we'll shift to Gen Z, they experience a different parenting style with their Gen X parents. Gen X parents, they value independence and they really focused on raising self-reliant children that can navigate life on their own. And that was also needed because this was the first generation where often both parents were working full-time. Now, you could think that that comes with a lot of freedom, but that wasn't really the case because Gen X parents, they also had very clear rules, still have very clear rules, and in fact also high expectations. And because of that, Gen Z, while they kind of do respect their parents' efforts, they often see their parents as reverse role models, showing them what not to do. So they value the independence that they were given, but many felt like they were left to figure out life on their own. And that now they want to approach that different with their own children. So that, of course, brings us to the question, how do they want to approach parenting? Well, in fact, Gen Z's unique parenting style is built on 4 pillars. And the first one is the importance to follow their child's rhythm. Gen Z sees their children not just as small children, they really see them as mini individuals. So, having their own personality and their own interests. And they really prefer to follow their child's natural rhythm as a result. They want their child to explore and learn at their own pace. And so for Gen Z, they see their role as a parent more as a cheerleader, being encouraging and supportive on the sideline, but not being, imposing strict rules or giving specific directives. And that's a shift from previous generations. When we think about it, boomers and Gen X, they really took charge, they took the lead, and they were expecting their children to follow. While millennials, it was already a more collaborative approach, allowing for input from their children, but still an active role as a parent to guide and curate their children's needs. And now Gen Z is taking that to the next level. And we see that difference especially coming to life when we look at how they are handling tantrums. So, which kind of brings us back to the start of the presentation. Millennials, when handling a tantrum, they will take an active role. They will use timeouts and distraction techniques to control the situation. Gen Z, on the other hand, is not focused on controlling the situation. They take a more relaxed, child-led approach. So for them, the priority during a tantrum is to understand their child's perspective, validate their feelings, and making sure that their child can work to the tantrum at their own pace. Now, a second focus for Gen Z is to prepare, not overprotect. Gen Z parents are very realistic. They know that their children will face struggles and challenges in life, and the sooner they learn how to navigate those, the better. And where millennial parents mainly want to create a protective bubble around their children, we see that Gen Z parents are all focused on preparing them for the real world. And because of that, they encourage their children more to take risks. As a parent, they don't think it's their role to step in and course correct every misstep of their children. They kind of, in fact, see it as an opportunity for their children to learn from their failures. But of course, all of that happening in the safe environment that they created. Now, preparing also means that Gen Z parents do not shy away from the more difficult topics like discrimination or mental well-being. And having open discussions about these topics allows them to prepare their children for the challenges they might face in the future. Now, as we mentioned before, many Gen Zers, they grew up feeling a bit distant from their own parents. And because of that, Gen Z is hyper-focused on building a strong emotional connection with their own children. So they really prioritize being present, both physically and emotionally for their children. So it's all about creating a space where feelings and experiences can be shared openly. And at the core of it is that Gen Z parents want to develop a strong trust relationship, ensuring that their children will feel comfortable reaching out to them when lives get challenging, because that is something that they missed with their own Gen X parents. And finally, the fourth pillar, Gen Z parents don't see parenthood as something that limits their identity or lifestyle. So for them, parenthood is not just about giving, it's also about having fun. and they want to spend and they want the time that they spend together with their children to be enjoyable, both for themselves and for their kids. And they achieve this in different ways. So one way is to include children in their hobbies and in activities that they like. So for example, Gen Z parents will take their kids along on hiking trips or yoga sessions. Another way for them to do this is by turning everyday routines into playful moments with their children. And that is in contrast with Gen Y's approach. Of course, millennial parents, they also value those shared moments with their children, but they often tend to prioritize their kids' needs in those moments. And so that comes at the expense of their own enjoyment. And this combined with millennials parents chase to be the perfect parent results in them frequently craving for me time, me time to decompress and recharge so that they can be their best selves when they do spend time with their children. When we kind of look into Gen Z, we see less of a need for me time with Gen Z parents because they fulfill their own needs as well in the we time that they spend and share with their kids. Now that we have a better understanding of the 4 pillars of their parenting style, the key question is, of course, what does all of this mean for brands? Well, both Gen Z and millennial parents have very high expectations when it comes down to brands, but their priorities are a bit different. For millennial parents, safety and reliability are really at the top of their list, and those are the things that are non-negotiables. Gen Z parents, on the other hand, they take it a step further. They bring a more overall no compromise mindset. For them, it's not just about covering the basics. They want a brand that cares. And let's now break down what cares means for them. To start, both Gen Z and millennial parents expect brands to take environmental responsibility seriously. But Gen Z, they push it to a step further. They want brands to make a positive impact on their community and the world. For Gen Z, social responsibility, inclusivity, and championing diversity are key, and not just in how the business operates, but also in how the brand shows up to the world. And so that means that brands need to represent diverse parents in their communication and their advertising. It's about being mindful and recognizing that there are different family structures. And so also including single parents, safe-sex parents, or also giving dads the spotlights that they deserve as well. Second, Gen Z parents, they really take pride in finding smart buys. So, effective products that do not break the bank. For them, affordability is not just about the price tag. In fact, that they are looking for both short-term and long-term affordability. Short-term affordability is looking for brands and products and services that offer quality at a reasonable price. And that's why they embrace, as a generation, private labels, volume packs, but also are always on the hunt for promotions. When we look at long-term affordability, that means that they are more willing to invest upfront when the product offers better value over time. And that can be achieved in different ways. So for example, when we think of products like a stroller, something that can help to grow with their child so that they do not have to buy different purchases and for every stage have to buy a different product. Gen Z is also are also fans of the circular economy. So they appreciate brands that showcase the value of products in the second-hand market as well. Now, Gen Z parents are also reimagining what it means for products to be right for their families. To start, every item that they bring home needs to be free of harmful chemicals and needs to meet all the top safety standards, of course. But that's just the start. As being a parent for them isn't about losing their identity, but enhancing it. They want parenting products that seamlessly fit into their lives, but also help them express their own interests and passions. So they seek for products and they seek for products and services that are tailored and customized to their own family's unique needs. So they really want to make sure that the individuality of their children is being celebrated as well. Now, As we mentioned before, Gen Z parents are all about building strong emotional bonds with their children. So they're really interested in brands that help them to achieve that. So they value brands that make them more present into their children's lives. And that can be done, again, in different ways. Think about products that help them free up time from household chores, for example, so that they can spend more time with their children. But another way is tools that help to foster and a trust and open communication with their children. And finally, unlike Gen Y parents who prioritize functionality, Gen Z want to experience a sense of fun and playfulness into their lives. And this gives brands a real opportunity to elevate the parenting experience by incorporating, for example, sensory elements or bold designs and interesting features in kids and parenting products. And this way they make the products and the routines more enjoyable for both the children and the parents. And another great way to spark joy is through humor. We know that Gen Z sees parenthood as perfectly imperfect, and that really gives brands an opportunity to communicate about the highs and the lows of parenting, but doing that with a touch of humor to keep it light and relatable. And communicating that way doesn't only help to humanize the brand, it also allows to create a deeper connection with these Gen Z parents, as they prefer to engage with brands that reflect their parenting reality in an authentic and kind of lighthearted way at the same time. So as you can see, we uncovered a lot of valuable insights throughout our journey, but we knew that in order to create a real impact, we had to take the stakeholders beyond the data. And that's why we created an empathy experience. So we kind of added layers before and after the typical debrief session. Ahead of the debrief, we asked stakeholders to connect with a Gen Zer in their life, have a conversation about parenting. And this way we ensured that they would come into the session with an open mind. After the session, we organized speed dating sessions between stakeholders and Gen Z parents from our communities. And those conversations which were led by stakeholders help them to, on the one hand, more deeply connect, but also dive deeper into some of the topics that spark their interest. And the results kind of speak for themselves. An impact survey showed that at least 9 in 10 stakeholders indicated that they now feel that they have a better understanding of Gen Z parents, feel more deeply connected, and feel more confident in taking business decisions moving forward. So we did not only change their minds, but also their hearts and their actions. So to kind of conclude and looking back at this journey, we can really say that generational learning is, super fascinating. It's not just about stereotyping a generation, but it's about creating a deep understanding of this new generation of parents and understand their needs and how their needs and their attitude shifts. And this understanding then supports Philips now to develop innovations that are inclusive to all generations of parents, but it also helps them to progress their Philips event, share the care positioning, and make it more meaningful for Gen Z parents. So all of these learnings support Philips to stay close to parents now and in the future. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thanks for joining me, and I'll now hand it over to Delphine, who will tell you more about how we collaborated with L'Oréal to boost customer centricity and empathy.
It's on my mind every hour of every day. The things we could do, oh, it takes my breath away.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. And I'm extremely excited to share with you today a story on how we accelerated consumer empathy for L'Oréal over the past 3 years. And to start, maybe a little bit of context first. So it's important for you to understand that L'Oréal has a history of being close to markets, to be on top of trends, to be open and curious. So consumer centricity is really in the DNA of the brand. However, when they reached out to us back in 2020, they felt that they really needed to boost their consumer centricity and that they needed to move from consumer understanding to consumer empathy. And being at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, it felt even more important than ever to come close to consumers. And L'Oréal is acting in beauty categories that are extremely dynamic and ever-changing and impacted by many digital and cultural trends, as nicely phrased here on the screen by the global CMO, Miralda Derk. So keeping the finger on the consumer pulse is really fundamental to the brand, and that's why they wanted to bring new scale, new speed, and a more structured approach to empathy. And it was clear from the beginning that technology would play a crucial role in all of this. However, L'Oréal decided to stay away from AI and synthetic data as an alternative to real human connections. To L'Oréal, empathy is really about truly listening to consumers. It's about sensing, it's about getting in touch with real people and real emotions. So technology really as an enabler of company-wide empathy. And that's why we have created the Beauty Talks program. So it's the Global L'Oréal Consumer Connect program. And I want to introduce the program to you using a short video. But note that in the video, we had to replace all consumer images by artificial images because of privacy reasons. But I can reassure you, L'Oréal people are talking to real consumers and real professionals. Let's have a look.
Culture, context, and expressions are changing rapidly as consumers are becoming more diverse in their needs, passions, and relationship with brands. Now more than ever, it is important to stay true to our history at L'Oréal, to watch, to listen, to engage, and be on the ground with consumers to find inspiration, ignite powerful insights, and seize what starts. With the Beauty Talks program, it has never been easier to connect with your targets around the world and release your bivouac mindset, that of the road. Get an outside lens, get inspired, get surprised, get closer. Connect with thousands of consumers, influencers, and professionals from 29 countries covering key mature and emerging markets, either via our DIY or full service mode, as a standalone connect or as part of a broader team event, online via Teams, or offline face-to-face. Take a moment to empathize,
Très clair. J'aime bien quand vous dites se donner 5 minutes d'amour en valeur.
learn,
For example, dermatologists don't really like exfoliating brushes.
understand,
And microneedling. How do you do that?
Beauty Talks can help you get upskilled on your key targets, deep dive into transversal themes, understand consumer trends and shifts, supercharge running projects, bring to life consumer insights, co-create with consumers, infuse your workshops with the voice of the consumer. With about 2,200 connects done by September 2024, involving more than 30 entities cross-division, connecting with consumers and professionals across the globe, Beauty Talks has become an indispensable tool for many colleagues who highly appreciate it.
Such an amazing experience to come back on Earth.
And also to add this human touch to our daily work.
Absolutely amazing and eye-opening.
Upskilling.
Game-changing.
Empowering.
Exciting.
And also, it is a lot of fun.
Go Beauty Talks.
Be curious. Be L'Oréal. Reach out to your CMI or to the Human8 team to get started with Beauty Talks.
So as you could see in the video, we have great energy and positive vibes around the program, but what is now actually driving the success of the program? And well, we have identified 4 drivers of success. We have labeled them the 4 C's of consumer empathy, which are capability, competency, culture, and capture the value. And the first C is capability. And there are 2 things important to mention here around the capability. First of all, if you want to engage people into a new tool, into a new program, it's important that you make things super easy. You need to bring simplicity and convenience. And that's why we have created the Beauty Talks platform. It's the one place where everything comes together in an easy and instant do-it-yourself UX, taking you through the full empathy journey from training and learning over booking your connect, sharing back and reflection, as well as tracking activity and impact levels. The approach is digital first, but the program is hybrid in nature because we do not only facilitate online connects, but also offline connects, including in-home visits, shop-alongs, meet and greets, speed dating sessions during empathy events. Another important thing about capability is that you do not only need to make sure that you have a great UX throughout, you also need to make sure that the connect in itself, the conversation with the consumer, is really a top experience, is really a memorable moment for the stakeholders. And that's why at Human8 we invest in matchmaking. We de-average the profiles. We make sure that we connect your employees with consumers and professionals that are truly inspirational. And we do that via our do-it-yourself matchmaking tool, where employees have access to thousands of pre-screened and pre-profiled consumers in just a few clicks. There is also an option to ask for more niche profiles like prosumers, duty-free shoppers, influencers, or professionals like hairstylists, makeup artists, and healthcare professionals. The second C is competency, because it's not only important that you have a smooth UX and that you have great profiles to talk to, you also need to make sure that you build the right competencies and the right skill sets with the teams. So we needed to empower the cross-functional teams on the L'Oréal side. We needed to make sure that we upskilled stakeholders from different backgrounds. So we are not talking only CMI, but also sales, marketing, beauty tech teams, travel retail, and so on, and making sure that they get the most out of the time that they spend with consumers. And we do that in our trainings, in our templates, in our playbooks. And this is especially important for those teams that are further away from the consumers, like, for instance, innovation teams. For the L'Oréal Dermatological Beauty team, for instance, we have connected the skincare innovation team with patsumers, that are consumers that have skin pathologies. And we have immersed them into their lives and into their daily struggles and pains in order for them to grow more empathy and to come with more relevant innovations. And it's by empowering those cross-functional teams that we really move beyond CMI. So driving empathy on a company-wide level is not the only responsibility of CMI. It becomes a collective effort. Third C is culture. From the beginning, the ambition was really to install an empathy culture, a global empathy culture, and that we wanted to transform the business by building new habits around doing connects, by ritualizing connects. And in order to get there, first of all, it's crucial that you have empathy embedded in long-term vision and strategy of the company, and that you have top management support. And here on the screen, you see Alexis Parekis. He's the president of the Consumer Product Division. And this is a little video in which he is sharing his excitement after talking to an Indian woman with the team. So he's not only a sponsor, but he does also participate himself in Connects, and he's endorsing that to the team. So that's crucial if you really want to transform a business. Secondly, you also need to make sure that you keep the program top of mind, so that you continue to push for the program. And for that, we have developed a Beauty Talks branded activation and communication plan, including newsletters. We have branded artifacts, we have games and competitions, dedicated spaces on internal channels, and so on. So there is a full plan for a continuous push of the program. And thirdly, we have also invested in a global Beauty Talks advocates network. That is a group of highly influential profiles that are also super fans of the program and that help us to push for the program through their networks. And finally, at some point, you also want to capture the value of all these efforts, of these collective efforts, and you want to ensure that you change the hearts, the minds, and the actions of people, that you transform the business and that you drive business success from empathy. And one way to do that is by embedding empathy into existing value streams. That is by, for instance, doing connects whenever you work on a strategic project, or when a Mancom is visiting a country, or when somebody is starting a new position. So really pushing for empathy from the start. And the idea is that you make sure that doing connects and empathy is getting embedded in daily ways of working, and that you help people to get better in their jobs. For instance, the Garnier International team has embedded empathy into the development process, and they also will do some connects whenever they are working on their new launch plans in order to get inspired. For the Prada team, for instance, there they will use Beauty Talks and do some digital connects whenever they have launched a new product in order to get some first user feedback. Another way to capture the value is by actually measuring the impact, so really assessing where you are against that empathy ambition. And that brings me to the next part of this presentation. What is now the impact, the effectiveness of this program? And if we look at the scale, we can say that we have onboarded more than 3,000 L'Oréal employees spread across different entities, so including global teams, countries, beauty tech teams, travel retail, and so on. And they are also spread across 21 geographies. We have facilitated more than 4,800 connections since the start, and in 23 that meant that we have connected 7 stakeholders with consumers or professionals every single day. If you look at the impact numbers, we have a score of almost 9 out of 10 on recommendation, which is already very high. And also in terms of impact KPIs, with a score of 8 or higher, we can clearly say that we change the hearts, the minds, and the actions of L'Oréal stakeholders, and we have improving numbers year after year. To make things maybe a little bit more tangible or concrete, I want to share a case on how we have generated impact through Beauty Talks for the global travel retail team. Beauty Talks has helped them not only to come closer to travelers, to duty-free shoppers, but also to come closer as a team. Because post-COVID, post-pandemic, they were confronted with a very rapidly changing traveler reality, and with travelers with even more diverse profiles than before, so typically going beyond the key and the big markets. And thanks to Beauty Talks, they could connect with those very diverse profiles across the globe faster and more frequently. So that ensured that they could keep finger on the pulse and act faster to this changing reality. But they also came closer as a team because there were more moments of sharing, reflection, and team building. So, and this presentation is coming to an end, and we have some lessons to share here, or lessons that we have learned, at least, that we want to share with you. First of all, empathy requires long-term thinking. So it's about, if you want to change a culture, if you want to install an empathy culture, you really need to make sure that you continue to push until things are getting embedded in daily ways of working. Secondly, empathy fitness or repeat usage, the new habits around Connect, are crucial moving forward. For now, we have mainly invested in onboarding new stakeholder groups into the program and fine-tuning the program to fit the company culture and the company needs. And by doing so, we have laid ground to now really accelerate empathy fitness or repeat usage. And finally, the work is never done. Internal and external dynamics will continue to challenge us in our approach, in our thinking, in technology. For instance, in 24, we have introduced the AI summaries to the program, and we are also exploring the option of AI avatars on key teams and key audiences as a new way and an impactful way to unlock this wealth of authentic human data to the business. And that's my story for today. I hope you thought it was insightful, and I'm handing over to Tim now.
Well, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to share some inspiration now about the future of AI and how its transformative potential is in reshaping market research. So in my presentation, I will focus specifically on how we currently try to understand consumers and explore how AI will then play a pivotal role in unlocking even deeper insights into the consumer behaviors and motivations. So as a matter of fact, I will also present an actual case study, which we've done with one of our clients, Beyond Meat. So offering you a little glimpse of what we've already applied in this concept to a case study. Anyways, I would like to start with a learning that comes from outside of the market research industry, and that is chess, which is actually one of my passions. So chess engines were up and coming around the 90s, and with the idea it would completely disrupt competitive chess. So in like 1997, IBM created Deep Blue, which is an engine that actually beat Garry Kasparov, who was widely regarded as the greatest chess player of all time. So naturally, this outcome then triggered a mix of predictions as well as fears. So mainly human chess players were, well, they were scared of them becoming irrelevant and less interesting, as well as the game just losing its heart and soul because it would lose a lot of creativity and it would lose a lot of this artistic aspect of chess. So even Garry Kasparov then expressed his concern at that time that AI will eventually surpass human abilities, not just in chess, but in many other fields too. So yeah, now 25 years later, can we say that those concerns were valid? Well, the assumption that chess becoming obsolete was largely unfounded, unless you're Elon Musk, right? And that's a whole different story to unpack, which I'm not going to go further into. But what we've actually been seeing is a much more promising outlook. And many of those outcomes can likely be applied to market research. So first and foremost, chess is more popular than ever. And that's a proven fact that human chess players have significantly improved at a rate that has never been seen before. I am going into more detail on how they did it. However, let me just go to the second point, which is just watching an elite game of chess is just for us common mortals much better and interesting because we have engines now that provide us with instant game analysis and evaluation, so allowing us to watch and understand the key moves of those grandmasters of game and really understanding what's going on. And lastly, the engines have democratized the game of chess. So almost every person now has easy access to super grandmaster level chess insights. So the game of chess has even reached the smallest villages in India who actually just now have been dominating the chess Olympiads. If you watched it a couple of weeks ago, they've won both gold in the open tournament and in the women's tournament. All right, so on the left side, you see here a common chess opening line tree showing basically what advanced chess players have learned or have encountered before after the first 3 moves. And to put it into perspective, there are more than 9 million unique and distinct positions after the first 3 moves. So learning those so-called main lines of those openings can already give you a big advantage in position theory. But then many of those openings were analyzed by elite players many years before we even had chess engines. At that time, top players were strongly relying on reading books and analyzing historical games, often spending multiple hours and days to just understand the theory behind each of those moves. Nowadays, chess engines analyze opening positions up to 20 to 30 moves deep. So something what human players could or would never be able to do reliably, at least without any errors. So actually through chess engines, modern players discovered new lines and theoretical novelties that were previously considered too risky or even unexplored. And the game preparation just became much more efficient for top players, allowing them to focus on fresh and creative ideas on how to apply and even surprise their opponents, rather than just like spending huge amounts of time to analyze the next 1 or 2 moves. So now you might ask, okay, how's this all relevant to market research, right? So just like chess engines revolutionize the way players improve and engage with the game, AI also transforms market research in similar ways. So it provides us with deeper insights, with faster data analysis, and also democratized access to advanced tools. AI enhances the way how researchers understand consumer behavior. So much like chess players now rely on engines to uncover patterns and strategies, AI can help market researchers to detect hidden trends, predict future behaviors, and optimize decision making. So AI democratizes insights, making advanced analytics accessible to researchers at all levels, leading to smarter, data-driven strategies, ultimately improving outcomes across the industry. So as you know, there is a wide range of issues that market researchers struggle with on a daily or weekly basis, right? So sometimes we struggle with just analyzing huge amounts of complex data. The other times then we struggle with just finding the right questions without imposing some sort of like bias or subjectivity to it. So very often the answers are so hidden that our human mind cannot really spot them, at least right away. So, and then AI is going to relieve us from that. And obviously not fully, of course, but definitely to a large extent what we had before. So here, just as a reminder of what we can actually achieve when applying AI models to our market research. So we can process enormous amounts of data. We can identify hidden patterns. We can predict outcomes, everything in a more efficient and a more accurate way. So let's actually have a look at one of those AI techniques that is transforming market research, just as it did like the game of chess. So actually, the most recent chess engines incorporated techniques that is known as deep learning. For those who haven't heard about that concept yet, so the concept is training artificial neural networks with multiple layers so we can make complex decisions. So to simply put it, it's a way of AI to learn by recognizing patterns. So at Human8, we started to apply this technique to better understand consumers already. Even actually more than in chess, consumer minds are very, very complex. So understanding consumers requires techniques that takes this complexity into account. So at this point, we have a broad range of methodologies to understand consumers by gathering a diverse range of data points, each giving us more details about their behavior as consumers. So for example, we use surveys, questionnaires to identify just simple segmentation details like age or gender. We possibly use things like focus groups, discussion boards, or consumer diaries to dig even deeper into their thoughts, emotions, and their experiences. And there are, of course, there's much more ways of gathering consumer information. And let me just also emphasize that this type of data remains to be one of the fundamental part of any market research study, right? So this is the primary source of our knowledge about consumers, and that kind of lays the foundation of then what's coming on top of it. So nevertheless, it is sometimes just impossible to find out every single detail about a consumer, right? So at the end of the day, there's only so much we can ask the consumer for multiple reasons, of course, time, for example. But then there are also several types of consumer information that is just tricky to gather using traditional methods, which I mentioned before. So that's where we can use deep learning models, which helps us kind of filling the gap in our understanding by generating what we call synthetic data based on the primary data that we already have available. So applying that on an example, in a very simple example, it would possibly look like this, right? So we use deep learning models to generate data on what car they drive or why they love a specific pet, based on just the information which we already gathered before. So like nationality, the hobbies, the income, the education level. And the richer the primary data is, the more representative and the more reliable the synthetic data becomes. And here I just want to take a brief moment and actually think about what I actually trying to say here, or what I'm trying not to say here, right? So I am actually not trying to say that we should consider virtual data as the ultimate truth, or that the final answer when it comes to understanding consumers is synthetic data. However, the point which I'm trying to make here is that synthetic data offers us a more reliable and objective alternative to just relying purely on our human intuition. So particularly when trying to understand consumers' motives and behaviors. It is more consistent and less biased than when we use our human intuition sometimes. So again, I just want to emphasize that real data remains the fundamental source of our consumer knowledge. So then applying this to a recent case study, which we did for Beyond Meat, the benefits of this approach possibly becomes a bit more clearer to you. To begin with, Beyond Meat was looking to identify the key target group of their consumer base. So we began with the foundational UNA study to uncover basically the different usage and attitudes of consumers in different markets. Before anyone's trying to steal this data, this is of course not the real data. I'm just showing it here to explain my point. But anyways, the UNA study allowed us to then identify 7 distinct personas that represent a different consumer segment group. So we then used all this data and put it into some of our AI models to generate synthetic virtual data. The data that came out of it a lot of times covered much more aspects of the consumer. So not just the things which we asked before, but then also things like, okay, what could be their favorite brands, or what car would they like to drive? So all this data was then fed to our own AI chatbot. So for us to bring the data or the personas which we identified before to life. And we then organized a workshop together with our client Beyond Meat, and providing them with the opportunity to interact with those various personas through those virtual AI chatbots. So we allowed them to basically ask them different questions, any questions really. Like, we left that open to them, and for them to just gain a deeper understanding of the personas that they are interacting with. Really digging deep into the likes and dislikes, as well as just the feelings and emotions of those specific personas. So through the workshop and interactions, it quickly became evident where human intelligence excelled and where AI demonstrated its strengths. So the participants of the workshop showed ways of thinking that were actually essential for this workshop, and they were able to build emotional connections to those personas to just better understand where their possible doubts or concerns coming from. On the other hand, AI obviously stood out in the way it presented the data. It was almost identically mimicking even the language and the character of those personas, which just stood out. So then there's a common question that comes up, right, when doing those kind of workshops and working with AI, which is it just going to replace us? Is AI going to replace us? And the short answer, at least from my opinion, is no, right? So deep learning models are not fully autonomous. So while the models can autonomously recognize patterns, they strongly rely on the design and the refinement of the architecture of humans, right? We select the relevant data and we fine-tune the parameters. So in fact, even when generating synthetic data, a model's performance is only as good as the accuracy and quality of the real data which it was trained on. So I actually believe that the presented case study has shown us where the future of both market researchers as well as AI is heading towards. AI is going to do a lot of heavy lifting of data and complex data processing, whilst market researchers then can interpret this human story behind it. So actually allow myself to make a pun to close this presentation. Both in market research and in chess, it's not just about the moves you make, but also how you connect the pieces. Thank you very much, and I'm gonna hand it over back to Timo.
Thank you, Tim. All right, and also obviously thank you, Angie and Delphine, for 3 amazing case studies. I hope they worked inspiring for everyone. Let me just do a quick summary. I see we are 2 minutes short of time, so a quick summary before we head into some Q&A for people that are still here. We truly hope that obviously these case studies showed you how you can remain close to your consumer and also change the hearts, minds, and actions of your internal stakeholders and in your internal teams. In the Philips case, I think at the end it showed that Angie presented how you can bring to life the insights through really the empathy experiences, whilst on the other hand, Delphine showed how the Connect program really puts internal stakeholders directly in touch with consumers, obviously. And then Tim closed it off showing how really also immersive deliverables can truly activate insights. One last thing before we move over to the Q&A, I just wanted to let you know that we also appreciate quick feedback, of course. This is a QR code that links to that feedback survey. If you scan it now, you can obviously complete it after the session. No need to do it right away. But if you don't have the time right now, we'll always obviously also email you the survey. All right. So for people that still have a bit of time to stay and let's check in. I haven't been able to watch the chat or the questions tab. Delphine, you have been monitoring that. Was there any question that we want to get to?
Yes, we have a question for Angie, as somebody wants to understand the scope and geographical representation of the insights that you have shared, if that is possible.
Of course. So the community ran in both the US and in Germany. So we got a glimpse on let's say the North America point of view and the European point of view. So that's kind of the scope that we had included. In terms of scope, we tapped into the many dimensions of parenting. So it was the role that brands play, the way that they want to approach it. So all those things were kind of included, and we can also share a little bit more on that with some with the audience, in fact, if they would be interested, so they can drop us a note on that. And then one thing that is maybe important to highlight is often because Gen Zers are still young and are only entering parenthood, there could be a question: is this is this driven by life stage differences, or is it truly driven by generation? And because of that, that's the reason why we included both Gen Z and Gen Y parents in our study, and we kind of balanced them in terms of age of children, first-time parents, and so on, so that we really could truly get and get to the point where we could identify the differences. And on top of that, we of course also worked with the generational experts as well to help us identify the true differences between them, so that we could ground that into, let's say, more foundational learning of those generations as well.
Great. Thank you, Angie. I have no further questions in the chat.
All right. I see we've passed the hour, so maybe we give the time back to everyone. Thanks for watching this session. If you would have any further questions, obviously you can always get in touch with us. We hope you like this webinar, and we hope to see you soon on another occasion. Thank you.